think we can all agree that school is a waste of time. Middle school specifically was a period of time that we learned absolutely nothing. But the one silver lining we had from that era of psychological torment was the computer lab. The best part about the computer lab is that even the teachers themselves were too busy leaving every 5 minutes of the period to concentrate on what anyone was doing in the class, which meant we were free to play flash games to our heart's content. If you didn't know, a flash game is a video game that is played via the internet using a web browser. No downloading, no installing needed. They're mostly free to play and can be single player or multiplayer. They're sweet, straight to the point, and they make for some good time killers. So today I'm going to run down my personal top 5 favorite flash games in no particular order, by the way. It just seems counterproductive for how simplistic the games are. So let's get into it. Number 1, Balloons Tower Defense 3. This one really needs no introduction. If you know anything about flash games, you know that Balloons Tower Defense is basically the godfather of the genre. The objective in BTD is to stop any balloons from escaping the maze by building and upgrading balloons' popping powers. At face value, I know that this sounds very goofy and it looks goofy too, but at its core, it's really a bare roots tower defense game with a spin on it that provides unique upgrades and abilities that keeps the game feeling fresh and fun. I know that there's a Balloons Tower Defense 4 and 5 and probably 6, and then there were 2 more before 3, but if you ask anyone, 3 will always be the greatest when it comes to flash games. The developer of Balloons Tower Defense is listed as Ninja Kiwi, which any flash game connoisseur will know is among the top devs in the trade. You're 100% gonna see them reappear elsewhere on this list. I'm just warning you for that, as they definitely had a finger on the pulse of browser games for a while. Moving on to number 2, QWOP. Known to many as the original Rage game long before Jump King, Cuphead, Dark Souls, all of those. QWOP is a ragdoll-based game where players control an athlete using only the Q, W, O, and P keys. Moving in this game is incredibly difficult, and it made for some of the most teeth-gnashing, cringe-inducing levels of rage anyone could ever possibly feel. I find it hilarious that in this game you're only controlling the athlete's thighs and calves. It's such an absurd idea that shouldn't work as well as it does. Fun fact, the developer of this game, Bennett Foddy, is also the developer of my absolute favorite rage game, Getting Over It. A much harder game in which you're tasked with climbing up a mountain using nothing but a hammer. Aside from that game being anger-inducing, it also had some amazing voice narration and was one of the inspirations of this channel that you're watching right now.
Over time, we've poured more and more refuse into this vast digital landfill that we call the internet. It now vastly outnumbers and outweighs the things that are fresh and untainted and unused.
Shameless plug, by the way, I actually have the Golden Cauldron in that game, which is definitely not an easy feat to accomplish. Next game, number 3, Bowman. This one is a must mention, mainly because of its multiplayer capability. The objective of this game is simple. You and an opponent take shots from each other, adjusting the firing angle and force applied to your arrow for each turn. I remember this game getting competitive as hell. One time we even hosted a mini tournament throughout the entire computer lab period between a group of us. It was amazing. I guess another honorable mention while we're still on this game's page is Apple Shooter, a similar single player game where you attempt to shoot an apple on the head of an NPC while the distance increases every successful hit. Fun game, played that one on my phone more than a browser, but you know, they both exist. So the developer for Bowman is Free World Group, another very popular flash game creator. If you've played flash games before, I'm sure you recognize their website and their logo, as they've made some biggies in the past. In for number 4, I have to bring up Boombot. Now I don't know if this one's a deep cut or not. Like, I feel like Boombot wasn't the most popular back in the day, back in the computer lab. But for me personally, Boombot was the seed that started my love for puzzle games. Without Boombot, I don't think I'd get as good at Portal as I am today. Boombot is a puzzle game where you navigate each of the 50 levels only using bombs to maneuver. Once again, at face value, it makes no sense. It sounds like madness, like you're, I don't know, playing Junkrat. But game planning your next moves and hoping gravity is on your side for each of the levels makes for an engaging set of puzzles to solve. Of course, Ninja Kiwi is the developer for this one. As I said before, this group's output is insane, so I'm not surprised that they've made this list twice now. And my final pick is going to go to Dragon Fist 3. Dragon Fist is somewhat of a low-budget Mortal Kombat spin-off, but it's also slightly more advanced in the sense that you get an addition of unique weapons for each and every one of the fighters on the roster. The game plays like a typical fighter arcade game, but feels so depthy because of the 2 separate movesets you get get for each character. Not only was it innovative for its time, but it also succeeded in turning the computer lab into a Soul Calibur LAN party. Dragon Fist was developed by Ben Olding, who has recently made a VR fighting game which is very crazy to think about and heartwarming in a way. A solo developer who I was playing back in 5th or 6th grade on a browser is working on VR titles today, a far jump from making Flash games for sure. Very inspiring, and keep up the good work. And that's my list. Wow. I'm not going to lie, I expected it to be harder to formulate this list, but the longer I wrote the script, the more I realized I looped a lot of the same Flash games back in the day. Reading off my honorable mentions list, Happy Wheels is one I'm sure someone's going to be annoyed about not being on my list. But honestly, that game was only fun for me for a very short amount of time. Maybe it's because I watched a bunch of PewDiePie and Markiplier clips at the time, but it was just alright to me. It was just like, you played one level, you played all of them. Another honorable mention, Pandemic. People usually give more credit to the app recreation of this Flash game, but this was the original title that started it all. Oh, another big one was Escape the Prison. So many people played Escape the Prison. That was all I ever heard about for so long. I mean, to be fair, it was a good game. It was a welcoming new switch in pace aside from the shooting games and the car driving games. That's mainly what you're gonna find in a Flash game. Another honorable mention is Whack Your Boss. I played this one way too many times. This one actually might have been the most popular Flash game of all time. I remember people were playing entire YouTube playthroughs just going through all of the endings, all of the deaths that you could find. And then it spawned a whole bunch of different whack your, etc., whack your dog, whack your ex, whack your, etc., etc. Just a whole bunch of whack your games. The developer for Whack Your Boss is Tom Winkler. I think he also did the art for it because he seems to be a solo developer. Good on you, good on making your art come to life in this unique kind of fashion. Next honorable mention, Max Dirt Bike. That one was amazing. Spent so much time just trying to do all of the levels. I also downloaded this one in app form as well later on. This one was like one of those long stick ones. I think they actually even made like a modern day version of this game that was also multiplayer just because of how popular the idea was. It's an addicting process to go through. It's like Happy Wheels if it was more of a challenge based game. Rapid reading these off because I have too many honorable mentions. The Impossible Quiz, that one was a trendsetter of quiz question Flash games and showing that it could be possible to make that a game. Slither.io, which was like the new age browser game that had people who never played games before hopping on Slither.io, so I guess that was cool to see. Sniper Assassin was a popular one. I didn't play that one as much, but everybody used to play that one. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of great Flash games. I guess that's kind of the point of these, a quantity over quality situation, which definitely breeded more quality than I had assumed it would. As I wrap up the video, I want to thank the websites that hosted these games. Without sites like Addicting Games, Newgrounds, Miniclip, and Cool Math, of course, we may never have experienced these Flash games at all. And worse yet, we would have actually had to do schoolwork when we were in the computer lab. I'll be leaving links to all of the games that I listed in this video, as well as all the developers and where you can find them in the description. Be sure to check that out. And leave a comment to your personal top 5 Flash games. I'm sure I missed out on some good ones, considering there are thousands and thousands of them out there. Of course, as always, leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe if you want to subscribe. And for the fade out, I'm going to play Quap. Let's try this here. You know, I feel like I'm about to be exposed about how bad I am at this game, even though it's on my top 5 list. Okay, front foot forward. This is, maybe I shouldn't have had this. I'm starting to feel like maybe I shouldn't have had this as an idea for the fade out. This might have been, I hope I've already faded out at this point. I've gone backwards. Okay, now I got it here.